All right, everybody, welcome back to coverage here of the MagicOnline Champion Showcase. My name is Corey Baumeister. That's Anuraag Das. We're going to be getting you ready here for round one of some sweet vintage cube action. And Anuraag, we have a really nice feature match here for us already. Let's take a look at the players we're going to be checking out here in round one, and you are not going to want to miss this one. Some of the two favorites here in this tournament already. We got Piotr Gloglowski, Kanister, up against David Inglis, Tangrams, two extremely great Magic players with almost mirrored stats here, at least with the years played here at 10.5, as well as that lifetime win percentage here, almost identical. David Inglis is the person in second place with lifetime win percentage being only 0.2% behind. Played a ton of matches here. Kanister, of course, playing almost 3 times as many matches over David. Piotr qualifying via the leaderboard, and David Inglis qualifying via the open showcase number 2 here. So let's take a look at the players' deck lists and have Anuraag give us a lowdown here. Starting off with Piotr Gloglowski's vintage cube list. Anuraag, tell me about this one.
Yeah, so we got the pleasure of watching Piotr draft this entire list here, and I have to tell you, this is one crazy list that's been put together. Off the bat, you'll notice that there are 2 pieces of power here in beautiful whiteboard of the Emerald and the Sapphire, combined with the general archetype here, which is predicated off of Sneak and Show, but we also have a lot of other ways to get creatures into play. So you'll notice that there is a copy of Channel, we have a copy of Show and Tell, and Flash as well as our ways to get powerful creatures into play. What are some of those powerful creatures? Well, you're looking at Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, Triplicate Titan, and even a Woodfall Primus. To glue everything together, Corey, we've got copies of Early Acceleration in, mana dorks like Delighted Halfling and Deathrite Shaman, as well as solid mid-game options like Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath.
Yeah, this deck looks incredible to me. I have really high hopes here for Piotr. And the thing is, this is a very, very stressful structure because even though we have high hopes for this deck, you lose one match, you're not making it to the grand final straight away. You can, of course, win a lot of money, but these drafts are very important to stay undefeated. And Piotr's opponent here, we got David Inglis here, a absolute crusher of professional Magic playing, wow, basically... Well, I mean, I was going to say basically mono blue, but then I see a bunch of different colors. We see Underworld Breach, there's Brain Freeze, and, Anuraag, I see 2 pieces of power here as well. Oh my God.
Yeah, this is a deck, Corey, that I would be over the moon to draft. Yes. Not just because it's loaded on the power level spectrum, but because it's just so fun to play. So what we're looking at here is a very great execution of Storm, an archetype that you don't generally see at this level of competitive play because it requires a lot of things to go right here. But like you mentioned, the key combo is going to be Underworld Breach, Lion's Eye Diamond, and Brain Freeze, which is so powerful that it was banned in Legacy within a single month of the combo being legal. Beyond that, we've got key cards like Yawgmoth's Will and Demonic Tutor to really give us more options for comboing, but also consistency as well. And lastly, who can't be excited about everyone's favorite Ancestral Recall? I mean, Tangrams has a great deck here, and I'm really excited to see how fast we can execute with this combo.
I absolutely love it. So one thing before we get into the match here, Anuraag, just explain to the viewers who may be not familiar with Lion's Eye Diamond, Brain Freeze, Underworld Breach, how does that actually kill someone?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Underworld Breach in play, you actually get to recur cards from your graveyard. Lion's Eye Diamond is a fantastic way to get all of your hand into your graveyard, including something like a Brain Freeze, but you can also escape the Lion's Eye Diamond thanks to Underworld Breach over and over and over again to generate functionally infinite mana so long as you have enough cards in your graveyard to pay for the escape cost. Now, if you're looking for a great way to get cards into the graveyard, well, look no further than Brain Freeze. You target yourself, and that's going to mill a lot of cards into your graveyard. So realistically speaking, you just loop the Lion's Eye Diamond over again, you loop the Brain Freeze, and then when you're finally done, you can actually target your opponent and mill out their entire deck.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I think the funniest thing about this deck list is we have Ancestral Recall at home, Treasure Cruise, and then I know this is going to pain a lot of the viewers here and probably you, Anuraag, but we have Underworld Breach and Underworld Breach at home, Yawgmoth's Will. I know those are kind of the opposite direction where Underworld Breach should be the card that's less exciting than Yawgmoth's Will, but it costs one less, so I think it's just better, right?
I mean, it's so powerful that we are splashing for it off of basically a single Blood Crypt and the Savine Trial, and we have a Verdant Catacomb.
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible. This could easily essentially be the finals of the Vintage Cube. Both of these decks look incredible. I don't want to talk about them anymore. I want to go watch the action. Let's get ready for round one here of the Magic Online Champion Showcase. David on the play here with a MOCS to start it up and an island. And do you recall right away? I mean, I guess there was just nothing that Piotr's deck could do about it, so there's no real point to, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, with knowledge that we have, Ancestral Recall might just take a backseat here to lose focus, just playing safely, playing conservatively, and we just fire it off on the opponent's end step and untap with all our mana.
Yep, that's fair. And here we go, Recall to start it off, draw some cards, picks up the cute little otter as well as Jace, the Wincon, which we'll be seeing in Modern a little bit later as well. But for now, we can, of course, just play our really powerful Otter Wizard and do some considering, and we're not that far away from just being able to delve Treasure Cruise and get it going again here as far as next turn. But doesn't play the Otter.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, I like this play a lot. Stays kind of disciplined as we see the pattern recur from turn 1 to turn 2, holding up the counter magic, and that tells you, right? We saw how deliberate Kanister was during the draft, and we're going to see that same level of respect here from David, saying, I'm going to keep my counter magic up and make sure that you can't do anything. This is my game. I'm setting the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that is genius here, because if this Vaultborn Tyrant came into play, sure, your opponent gets something as well, but I think it is too big of a risk with the explosivity of Piotr's deck.
All right, here's to the turn 2. The big decision is whether or not we want to put Show and Tell into play, or if we're willing to just take a little bit of time here, sculpt with the Surveil from our commercial district, followed up by the Preordain. We could also deploy Hex Drinker, which is a nice low to the ground option that might eat up some interaction and clear the way for something like the Show and Tell.
Yeah, agreed. Also could just like Lotus Cobra, play the commercial district and like play Hex Drinker or Preordain. I think there's a lot of plays that Piotr can do here. I think I'm with you though. I wouldn't expect to just see Show and Tell here into the face-up counterspell.
Yeah, I think in this instance too, just given that we've both, started off with lots of resources. My opponent just cast Ancestral Recall. They've done nothing. They might have that counter spell. So I would be wary of it. I do like the sequencing here. This is all very good stuff from both players' side, honestly.
Yep, great start from both players. It'll be interesting to see what the follow-up is next turn for David, if he still wants to continue being very conservative or start actually getting on the battlefield. I mean, David's deck does feel like a bit of a combo control deck where, you're just like, all right, I want to not die. I want to not die. I want to not die. Okay, I win. So those type of decks end up just being incredible. Piotr's deck, on the other hand, is a more all-in combo deck. And while that can be more powerful, of course, you don't have as much play to it. So I think that's the dynamic we're going to see between these two players.
Yeah, and check that out. Wheel of Fortune actually just getting binned here off the commercial district. I do like this play, and I also like saving the Preordain here, going for the more proactive Hex Drinker. Gives you a little bit more decision-making power later on in the game. Once you have more knowledge of what your hand needs, your cantrips, they scale for the benefit later on as time goes. So good sequencing here by Kanister for sure.
Yeah, I like that as well. Make sure to just see how your hand develops first. You might just be like, all right, I need a land right now, but then there's 3 land underneath it, and you're like, all right, this was maybe not ideal. So consider here from David, see what we want to grab. I would think if it's even close you would think David would want to surveil into the yard when you have something like Treasure Cruise or Underworld Breach, or Yawgmoth's Will, and when you have all of those cards, of course, that makes it even more enticing.
Yep, and with 3-4 mana coming up next turn, we've got a lot of really cool options that we can draw into. Snapcaster Mage, maybe to buy back the Ancestral Recall.
Oh, baby.
We also have copies of Cryptic Command and even Mystic Confluence as potential pickups.
David's deck is sweet. I mean, you are a Control fan. I love Ancestral Recall. I love drawing cards as well, but I mean, I feel like this is a deck we would both want to be playing, is David's side.
Yeah, 100%, no doubt about it. And what's kind of interesting to me too is now we actually didn't do too well with it looks like we actually kept the Verdant Catacomb on top, maybe as a means to get access to our black mana. We find Savai Triumph as well. So the good news is our magic is online, or our mana is online. The question is what we're going to do with the lose focus and how much we want to hold back while also combating the minor bits of proactivity that Piotr has. Yeah,
because here's the tough spot. You know, with Piotr having Lotus Cobra and already having 3 mana, you know, I mean, if you were to play something like a fetch land that would be 3 mana, 4, 5, 6, you can already play Sneak Attack with 2 mana floating. So if David plays anything here, it's only counter unless you have 2 available. So there's some risk here, and David decides I need to get on the battlefield and go for it. And now we picked up Channel. Wow.
Yeah, this is actually really interesting too. I'm wondering if there's a way that we can use the Channel maybe to play around the potential of counter magic to get Vaultborn Tyrant into play. And the upside too is that if we're going the Channel route, we actually don't even need to worry about something scary coming into play off of Show and Tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and there is Sneak Attack. So is there any way that we can channel into Sneak Attack, into doing all the things? I mean, there definitely is, but it's the real question of, can you do it around Lose Focus? And it doesn't look like it. So if Piotr goes for that, I think, you know, something like Lose Focus on the Channel would just mean Piotr is left with doing only level up to level 8 on Hexdrinker, and I say that only in air quotes as that still looks pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely here. I think no matter how this turn plays out, Piotr's going to be pretty happy because the next turn we just have play after play after play lined up, and that's one real good way to get through the control deck's permission is just to constantly make them have it.
Yep, makes sense to me. Looks like we might be leaning on Show and Tell here, which is going to run right into this Lose Focus. Which, I mean, I think David just has to snap this off, right? Like, he can't allow an Emrakul to come into play right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a forced play for sure. And what's really interesting, too, is I think Kanister says, hey, all right, I'm looking at my 3 options here. The best one is going to be Sneak Attack, so I don't necessarily want to put that on the stack yet. Channel is the next worst, but Show and Tell, man, this card has so much downside. Let me just throw this into the waters and see what happens.
Yeah.
And this is maybe the best outcome possible, is that your worst spell is trading for Tangram's best spell.
Yeah, absolutely. And we think Lose Focus, I mean, saying best spell over Ancestral Recall, I mean, that's madness. But in this spot right now, getting a counter spell out is absolutely huge. So I think both players are okay with how this has worked. And now we'll see if David is interested in probably starting off with a draw aspect from the Kitsa and maybe try to do some treasure cruising. Is there any other sweet stuff we can do with Kitsa here?
Yeah, so Kitsa does have a second ability which allows you to copy spells. In order to do that, though, you do need to fulfill a certain condition, which is just reaching a certain number of power and toughness, which is granted by Kitsa's prowess. Unfortunately, right now, I'm not seeing a line that lets us get to that point here. So this might just be a setup turn here where we're using Kitsa to maybe refine the quality of our hand, pick up a copy of Cryptic Commander Counterspell, and then, okay, no, looks like we're going hard here with the Jace.
Oh boy, I mean, that is excellent. This is a nice setup here from David, trying to really get ready for a very explosive turn next turn. But, I mean, right now, we're about to see some fireworks, right? I mean, Sneak Attack can automatically, it might need help with Channel, but on surface value, Piotr can Channel, Sneak Attack, throw a Dino into play, and get up to level 8 on Hexdrinker to be able to just have a gigantic attack. Oh my god.
You know,
never mind. GG.
Okay, that's actually just so insane. I was gonna say, like, you know what's really tragic is that we milled Underworld Breach and Demonic Tutor off of our Wielder of Mysteries, but getting annihilated for 6 is both so cool here for Piotr, and so bad for Tangrams.
Yeah, I mean, this is just game, right? Like, I mean, the Annihilator 6, I think, would be enough, but looks like, yeah, we're just going to hard cast Emrakul. You automatically get to just put it into play. You take the extra turn, and then you get to attack. Just sneak attacking it, not really needed, and this should do it for game number 1.
100% here. And the question is do we need to pay more life to do anything else? I don't think we can actually also level up the Hex Drinker to a reasonable amount here. Actually, you know what? If we pay a little bit more life,
just pay 4 more,
the
right?
Hex Drinker could... Yeah, and then you could level up the Hex Drinker a number of times, and that would force a block from the Kitsa, which in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how can we get rid of all the permanents from the other side of the table? That's how you do it. You'd force the block.
Yeah, you force the block. You attack here for 4. Put David down to 15, and then the Emrakul finishes you off. So yeah, I don't think there's a single out that David can have with Kanister making this line of play.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
Absolutely. And this is so cool. Yeah, we're going to activate this ability just to see play as tightly as possible. Bullet Kanister wins. This is great.
Okay, I mean, that's exactly the way we drew it up. It was going to be interesting, Anuraag, if Piotr really had even that solid of a turn without that Emrakul. But, you know, when you make it to this stage, it comes with a little bit of luck. It comes with a lot of skill, and Piotr was paid off exactly when he needed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as we get into sideboarding, we're going to take a look at a couple options that we're going to bring in here. I would say that some element of Graveyard Hate is good here. I don't think we ended up drafting things like the Keen-Eyed Curator, so we're going to just be left with our Deathrite Shaman. And looking at potential options here, I mean, it's combo versus combo, so we will see that we're considering some things like the Fast Bond. Honestly, there's not too much that's going to be really shifting here from a card selection perspective. It's going to be more about assessing, you know, hey, my role in this matchup is to, you know, be very proactive and really just race the opposing combo deck. Also knowing that my opponent has a lot of counter spells, I'm going to be looking towards cards like Sylvan Library to accrue advantage and just like over and out card advantage them.
Yep, totally agree. And Piotr doing something that I really recommend doing if you're aspiring to be a good player. Getting this visual representation where Chainsaw starts there, those are the cards that are coming out for those potential cards coming in on the right. It's very nice to show this kind of visual aspect to yourself as you really see the ins and outs, and then after you take out the cards, then you can, you know, sort it by mana value. And I think this is a big level up moment for new players that are getting into Magic Online.
Yeah, and I'm double checking my math here, but on the other side here for David Inglis, I'm not seeing any cards coming in or out, which kind of makes sense, right? Cabal, Ritual, Tendrils, these are cards that could technically facilitate your combo, but you know, it's not 100% necessary. I think seeing the Emrakul come into play off of Channel means that we're now going to be focusing on milling ourselves with Brain Freeze and using Jace Wielder of Mysteries to win the game, which is, you know, one step more complicated, but still very feasible.
All right, so let's get ready for game 2 and see if David can even it up. All right, looking at the hands here, I see some power here from Piotr's side. And up top, I mean, we have Lion's Eye Diamond plus Breach plus a Tutor. I mean, these hands both look pretty scary.
Yeah, I gotta say, Tangram's hand is gonna pop off here. I mean, you've got your combo basically ready. You just need a turn or two to piece it together, and then you've got the win basically locked up here. Looking at the other side here, we've got Channel and Sneak Attack, which is pretty good, and Survival of the Fittest actually gives us access to something like the Emrakul, and the only prerequisite now is that we just have to draw into any creature, not just a combo creature.
Yeah, any creature. So Piotr could go turn 1 Survival and turn 2 Channel. Oh no, I guess you need another green. Would need 3 green. Okay, so there's the 3 green. So turn 1 Survival, turn 2 Emrakul is online if we can find any creature. Right?
Yeah, I'm actually... I think so.
Oh no, I guess not, right? Because you need the 1 green to discard. Yeah, so no.
You need green, green, green. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so isn't really available for turn 2, but turn 3, if we're able to find a creature here in the next couple turns, that would be huge. But we'll see how many turns Piotr has, because, well, David is going to tutor here for almost assuredly Brain Freeze, right? Or do you just get recall?
No, this is a brain freeze situation for sure here, because it is lethal. It's going to be, you just untap, you slam your Underworld Breach, you play mana Lion's Eye Diamond, you escape the other 3 cards here, Snuff Out, Lorien Revealed, and Verdant Catacomb, Brain Freeze yourself, and then it's just off to the races here. This is a turn 2 kill, and that's what Vintage Cube is about.
This is incredible. Turn 2 kill here, lined up from David after Piotr had the turn 3 Emrakul. I mean, these draws are just incredible, right? Like, there's no variance here, right? Like, no matter what, David wins, right?
Correct here. The one thing that we do need to be mindful of is that we don't accidentally try to mill out Kanister, because Emrakul has natural built-in protection against Brain Freeze, i.e. when it's put in the graveyard, it shuffles your whole graveyard back into the deck. So we're going to use the one piece of tech that we saw earlier, which is the Wielder of Mysteries. Once we mill our entire deck out, deterministically, we're going to use whatever floating mana we have to play Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and then draw a card with no cards in our library to win the game.
Oh, okay, yeah, you can't actually mill someone out when you have one of the Eldrazi's, but, David thought of that and drafted either Oracle or Jace to be able to make sure that he can just win the old-fashioned way here by decking himself and then just casting one of those win cons. Awesome. That's awesome stuff.
Yeah. In the words of the legends, that's just good deck building.
That's just good deck building. Yeah, absolutely. So here is Brain Freeze with Storm Count 6 heading at David. I mean, this is another 18 cards, so what, we'll be down to 4 in library, but at this point, it just doesn't matter. I think the only thing that's going on is Piotr is just seeing exactly how David sideboarded, as, whenever you flip over your whole deck, your opponent gets a lot of information, something that I feel we're very used to in the modern side with Underworld Breach.
Yeah, and I think while we take a minute here, we're going to watch, Tangrams sort of execute this combo. I'm thinking of other creative ways that we could actually win through something like an Emrakul defeating Brain Freeze. The first thing that comes to my mind, and as unintuitive as this sounds, we could use a lot of our mana to just target Kanister multiple times with Ancestral Recall and force him to draw his entire deck.
Yeah, so how does it work if we Brain Freeze to, I mean, this literally doesn't matter, but Brain Freeze Piotr over and over and over again, eventually the Emrakul will come there. There's no spot where you can recall them with the Emrakul ability on the stack, right? Because each time you mill 3, then it'll shuffle. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically, you'd have to do it as soon as the Emrakul trigger goes on the stack. All the other copies of Brain Freeze don't really matter. Yeah. I mean, technically speaking.
Sure.
But that's when you try to make them draw their whole deck, yeah.
I love the immediate side out here of a Braid. I'm kind of with you. I'm surprised that was still in the deck, as that doesn't look great. We get Fast Spawn going, and I think I see exactly what Piotr's thinking. It's in the name of the card. You need to be fast here, because blink and you miss it. We've played 5 turns of Magic so far. This is insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the other side here, Tangrams with a confident no changes. So I quite like that a lot here. But looking at sort of how the construction of Piotr's deck has changed a little bit, the only real call out here is Hex Drinker now in the sideboard, and I believe the Tyrant has been switched out for Craterhoof Behemoth, just as a more surefire way to end the game. Yeah,
hoof, there it is. Try to just get your opponent dead when you just get some value with the Tyrant. Doesn't seem amazing to me. And I'm also wondering if David's deck, as powerful and awesome as it looks, there's just not many cards in the sideboard that even look remotely playable besides Tendrils and Cabal Rituals. So it seems like maybe David just kind of barely squeaked into a squeaked into a playable deck is maybe not the right way to word it, but squeaked into a busted deck.
Yeah. I mean, who needs the extra sideboard cards when your main deck is that good?
Absolutely. So let's watch this final game 3 to see who's going to pick up a early 1-0. Okay, looking at the hands here, we have Piotr on the play. We see some power. We don't see any super explosiveness. And then looking at David's side, you have the Lion's Eye Diamond, you have the Brain Freeze, but we're lacking lands.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem here is that Mystical Tutor, while castable, doesn't actually fetch your Underworld Breach. It does get Demonic Tutor, so if you can't hit that black source, you do have like a little bit of a ways to get there to the combo, but the problem is missing that second land drop would be the kiss of death here. On the other side, you know, Piotr's hand is pretty sizable. Turn 1 Sylvan Library is very good in the face of trying to find the complementing piece for the Atali in, you know, Sneak Attack or Flash or whatever it might be. And then worst case scenario, we also have access to Preordain and Uro to play throughout the rest of our curve in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, Sylvan Library in this matchup seems insane, right? Because David is just never going to kill Piotr with any kind of chip shot damage. I mean, you know, we see subtlety in hand, so like some world where you can flash that in and do something, but realistically, you're just going to take 8 every turn to draw a bunch of cards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a combo that I used to play in Legacy a couple years ago, which is you play a Sylvan Library on turn 2, you pay 8 life without even second guessing, doesn't matter what the cards are, and then you slam Uro the next turn to recoup some of that life and keep the gas flowing. That's a lot of cards you have access to.
Yeah, I've watched your Legacy streams, you filthy Yorin enjoyer.
I mean, what can I say? There's something about drawing cards that really just, it speaks to me on a different level, Corey.
I feel you. I mean, I won't tell up the beanstalk that you love a different one colorless green enchantment, okay? I won't do you like that. But hey, Anuraag, David kept that hand.
Oh, yeah, he was in the tank there for quite a while, and you know what? I see it. The explosive potential here, it is going to be a fast matchup, and you do need to win. You could mulligan into absolute nonsense, and we don't want that, right? So I like the percentage play here. We've also got a copy of Subtlety, too, as early game interaction without eating the second land, and if we do hit the second land, we've even got the lose focus. So it's a calculated keep here, one that I can definitely get behind.
Same, because basically how it looks is David is going to have 2 looks at a land, you know, the 2 draw steps, plus can Mystical Tutor for a recall. I guess that would only be 1 look at a land, but then you recall for 3 looks. So I wouldn't be too shocked to see Mystic Tutor just go get recall and try to hit a land drop that way.
Yeah, the other option is if you really wanted to guarantee the land, you could Mystical Tutor for Lorien Revealed and then cycle for, you know, an Underground Sea or something. It is a little bit intense, and there you go. There's a Savai Triumph. So some pretty calculated risk paying off here in dividends. Let's see if we can execute now.
Never didn't have it. That is super spicy here. Tutor can wait and pick up a recall later, pick up a combo piece to be able to find the combo of Underworld Breach. That's the only piece missing. But yeah, like we were kind of expecting, there's the pay 4 on both of those cards. And still no really, you know, amazing action, but on surface value, Uro into Preordain seems sweet.
Absolutely, yeah. And who knows, maybe this turn we take off for a little bit, play the Shifting Woodland instead, and then just wait till next turn to get a better Preordain. Yeah. Because, I mean, Preordain does give you some synergy with the Sylvan Library. If they're cards that you don't want, you can actually just push them to the bottom of your deck and then get a better Sylvan Library next turn. One of the reasons why you don't see Sylvan Library in every deck, simply because sometimes you're just looking 1 card deeper. You need ways to sort of clear the top of your library with Sylvan Library to make it truly good.
Yeah, I mean, and this is also pretty wild. Like, David might have to Mystical Tutor for a recall. Piotr's got a Ancestral Recall with his draw step on the board every single turn. Like, sure, it's 8 life, but it just doesn't matter. And speaking of things that don't matter, this Subtlety almost doesn't matter either. Like, I mean, just keep it on top, right? Like, or is this something you still are like, I don't really need it?
It's a tough choice here. I think because we have access to Preordain and Sylvan Library, we're going to see a lot of cards here. So we'll find out shortly where the Uro actually goes. But in my opinion, you know, putting it on the bottom makes a lot of sense. We can just cantrip naturally. Our life total is not under pressure. The only reason I'd really want to keep Uro in with me is either if I plan on leveraging the mana ramp to actually like hard cast one of these threats, which we're actually very much so in the reality of.
Yep, and wow, so far both Sylvan Library activations have been 4 mana sources as the extra cards. Like, I still think if I'm Piotr, I'm gonna take 8 more right? And go down to 4 because you're going to recoup some of the loss? Or are we getting into the territory that it's already a little scary? I mean, so far, bad hits from Piotr, though.
Yeah, these draws aren't great, but, you know, it's draws that you wouldn't have to take otherwise without the Sylvan Library.
Yeah.
So, honestly, it's kind of upsides here for me. And I agree with you. We just power through here, right? Confidence, ship sails forward at full speed, and we're going to try this Uro one more time.
Yeah, here comes Uro one more time, and there will be nothing that will be able to be done right now as the lose focus. I mean, you can cast it, of course, but of course, will not counter it. So probably going to see Uro get a land into play, see if we have a decent follow-up. Another land on top. Wow.
Yeah, pretty brutal here. And the other thing to notice is that we don't have a second red source yet for this Atali.
Why
but
not?
I do think that, yeah, Atali does have the potential to kind of win the game on the spot. I'm trying to see if there's a way, if we take the Underworld Breach, if we get lucky enough to hit it, is there a way for David to get access back to it, or are we just kind of out of luck?
I mean, Yawgmoth will, right? Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, that's a good call out. Good call out. Forgot that card exists. I mean, Underworld Breach is just so good.
Yeah, I mean, 3 mana. Ew, vomit.
All right, here's preordering. I think if we're looking for certain cards here, I wouldn't mind an enabler, like, you know, sneak attack is totally fine. Even a red source at this point, I would very seriously consider taking.
Yeah.
The only issue is that we have so many mana sources in our hand already, but I mean, casting Atali, you can't really be upset about that.
Yeah, and that's the problem too. Like, if we find the red source for next turn, Atali's gonna walk right into a lose focus, or if it somehow resolves, you know, there's the snuff out to be able to deal with it. So right now, you know, as awesome of a start Piotr has had, it's just really drawing a lot of air. And when you draw this many mana sources, usually you gotta think, well, at least whatever I draw is going to be online. But like, if we're looking at sneak attack as one of the cards, sure, you can play it, can activate it. If you're looking at another red source, it's another land, a, you know, 10th mana source that you don't want, but you kind of have to. Like, so far, Sylvan Library and Piotr's Library has really not agreed with him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I'm looking on the other side here. I'm trying to calculate from David's side, if we're going to win with Breach, how fast can we do it? Let's assume that we Mystical Tutor right now on the end step, and then we'll pull up probably something like the Demonic Tutor. We draw that for turn, then we play the Demonic Tutor, get the Underworld Breach, and on the next turn, we get an extra card, and we're going to look for ways to potentially combo off. So we're looking at, you know, 2 turns down the line, this match just could be over.
Yeah, also, if you Mystic Tutor for Yawgmoth, is it over right now? No, right?
It's tricky. We still need that 3rd mana source to actually cast the Yawgmoth's will.
Okay.
Which has been the bottleneck. That has been the whole problem with his hand to begin with, is that we just didn't have the requisite mana sources to combo off faster. We have all the other pieces. We're just bottlenecked by mana.
Yep, so does get the Demonic Tutor, so we'll see if we want to cast it this turn or hold up, lose focus. Makes sense.
Wow,
we
Corey,
have a plan here.
You're actually right. This is so smart. So it looks like we might be casting Demonic Tutor and holding priority to get that mana from Lion's Eye Diamond.
Oh my god, this is GG, right? Oh.
All right. And he concedes here. Wow.
What? That was just over?
That's insane. Yeah, just Demonic Tutor for Underworld Breach, buy back the Lion's Eye Diamond, and then crack that for blue, and then you brain freeze and you just win.
That's what I was wondering. Was there enough cards, you know, in the library? It all happened so fast. Of course, I'm sure there was, but wow. I did not think it was going to be over that turn. But impressive stuff there. I'm blown away. I'm blown away. That deck looks incredible, Anuraag.
Yeah, this is what it was like playing with it in Legacy. You just win out of nowhere. You string together your pieces. And honestly, I mean, really props to Tangrams for taking that calculated risk of just seeing whether or not we could get there, what the potential of that second land could do. Looks like the numbers crunched itself in a way that, you know, said, hey, keep this hand, and if you draw the second land, you're winning on that turn 3, which, I mean, It's great to see. This is why I love playing Vintage Cube. All the explosive potential with some of the most powerful cards in the history of Magic the Gathering. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Drawing the land off the top was just perfect. You know, the fact that it was a black and a red source. But, you know, I like the risk. You know, some will say, oh, wow, you got so lucky. But if he didn't hit, you know, the land right away, he still had the ability to tutor and then, you know, be able to get Ancestral Recall to have a lot more looks at it. So calculated risk, huge congratulations to David Inglis, is one step here to 3-0ing this Vintage Cube. And I mean, after seeing that deck in action, that's definitely my pick to win it so far. That looks really incredible.
A breach in all formats, right?
Yeah, I'm in. I am absolutely in. So don't go anywhere, though. We are going to jump right into more backup feature match. So let's take a look at the two players we're going to be checking out now. We have JohnMTG, who qualified via the Modern Showcase qualifier, the one I managed to lose badly in the top 8, up against Matthew Wright here on MagicOnline, who qualified via Pioneer. Matthew also was just in the Arena Champs, so qualified for that as well, and has been really, really impressing me. So, I mean, this is pretty impressive. These players are both relatively new. 2 years has been playing for John, as well as 5 years being played for Matthew. Both have their lifetime win percentages and not a crazy amount of lifetime matches because, well, they're pretty new to the game. So let's take a look at John's deck and see what he drafted. We took a little bit of a look at this, and yeah, walk me through this one. I think this is a sweet deck as well.
Yeah, so as a refresher, this is what you're looking to draft if you're interested in the artifact archetype here. We'll see some key artifacts coming into play in the form of Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, and some other components like, you know, the Thopter Foundry plus sort of the meat combo. A big element of this deck is going to be that Urza Lord High Artificer. I think that is our, you know, best win condition. We have access to cards like Portal to Phyrexia also to just close out and leverage all the mana that we're going to be generating. But I think in general, this is what you look at when you're thinking about like a big mana artifact deck. Couple pieces to round it out: the Third Path Iconoclast to create more artifacts, Chrome Host Seed Shark as another way to just, you know, leverage the storm of spells that you're going to be casting all these artifacts each turn. And then, you know, if we generate some sort of mana advantage, we can even use something like Time Spiral to sort of you know, abuse that and generate a resource advantage. The one thing that I think we're missing from this deck, Tolarian Academy surely would be nice, and maybe something like a Tinker, but this is a very strong deck, and I'm looking forward to see how it plays out. Yeah,
Tinker, the One Ring, Urza's Saga, something like that to really tie the room together would be awesome, but this deck looks totally fine. So let's take a look at John's opponent. Let's see what Matthew drafted, as this was one of the gamers we really didn't get to take too much of a look at, and finally we're going to be turning some creatures sideways, and we're going to be attacking. I know that card in the top left is a card I've seen you cast far too many times on your stream. I know you're a big Minsk and Boo fan, right?
Absolutely. So this is a red-green Gruul aggro deck. You've got early acceleration. You've got threats that hit hard and hit fast, like Lelia, the Blade Reforged is a card that I really like. Good burn spells and removal, like Bone Crusher Giant, for example. Nice value little orient there. And then even cards like Pest Infestation, which I think is exceptional in Vintage Cube just due to the amount of, you know, artifacts and things like that that we'll see. Finally, topping off with this Minsk and Boo, Timeless Heroes is I mean, what better way is there to win a game when you're trying to get aggressive? Throw a hamster at him and deal him for lethal damage and draw a bunch of cards too while you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love having that card on my side of the battlefield, and I absolutely hate playing against it. So between these two decks, who do you think is favored in this matchup?
Yeah, I do think that the deck that we're looking at right now, this Gruul aggro deck, it's direct. It gets to the point, it gets on the board, and it's fast. So really the burden of stabilizing is going to be on John, and because he doesn't have some of those critical elements, I could see a world where he gets, you know, basically stomped over with no pun intended, with the aggression that this deck is providing.
Yeah, or get a good gut punch here with Gut Tree Soul Zealot. That's also just an incredibly powerful card. So we're going to jump into the match. We are jumping into game 2, and Matthew Wright took down game number 1 already. So you're right, big advantage here to the Gruul deck. We have John on the play with a turn 1 Mana Vault, plus a lot of things to do with it. Up on the other side versus just a turn 1 Llanowar Elf and some solid aggressive elements.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math in my head right now. How much more mana do we need to actually hard cast that portal to Phyrexia that's looming in the corner of John's hand here? The Mana Vault will give us 3, and then the Grim Monolith will give us another 3. Oh, we're mulligan. Ooh, okay, that's interesting.
I mean, it seemed like a pretty solid, hand. Of course, it did only have 1 land, so there's always that kind of scary aspect. But now look at this. I mean, 2 mountains, nothing else there. Has to mulligan down to 5. Ew. I mean, just not really the draw you want here. But, I mean, now you have fast mana and Time Spiral. That's one way to fully unmulligan here. Wow, but gets rid of it. I'm kind of shocked by that.
Yeah, I think there's a plan here to maybe draw into a second blue source so that we can actually cast this Urza Lord High Artificer very, very fast.
Well, you could cast the Time Spiral that fast, couldn't you? Like, isn't that just better?
Yeah. That's tough to say. Urza is pretty much the star of the show in this deck, so I could see it going both ways.
I don't like it. I want to stand on record that I would have kept the Time Spiral, I would have kept the Mana Vault, the Mana Crypt, and, this hand already needs to get blue. And you just would have been able to get blue and just completely unmulligan and start the game over with a huge mana advantage. That's what I would have done, at least.
Yeah, very interesting here. And actually, one thing that I didn't quite pick up here is that we didn't have an untapped green source here from Matthew's side. We had the Thornspire Verge, but with no forest in play, we couldn't actually add green. So a little bit of a slower start.
So a little slower start. We do have an ice to get this down, but the Thornspire Verge is able to be played and does count as a mountain from the Jetmir Garden, so can cast Llanowar Elf this turn, but decides to use this mana to cycle away the Generous Ent anyways, since you're not going to be able to use it anymore, and see what kind of follow-up we have.
Okay, so Healy is a nice pickup here off of the Fire Ice. You can play it next turn thanks to the hybrid mana cost, but we do hit that second island, which means it's Urza time, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, it's Urza time. Could have been Time Spiral time, but we'll see if Urza is enough on this battlefield to really gain a huge advantage. Now, there is 2, kind of things that you can do here. You can cast Saheeli and then Mana Crypt, or you can Mana Crypt then Urza. Like, you get the most value by Saheeling into Mana Crypt, but of course you don't get the powerful High Artificer into play. What do you like here?
Yeah, I could see it kind of going both ways. The question is how much value can you extract out of the Urza before it potentially goes down? And to do that, you really need to understand the removal suite here from the red side. And I'm not really seeing anything here that warrants me to be too afraid from Matthew's side in terms of removal spells. So I like deploying the Urza here, getting that construct into play, stabilizing. If we really are concerned about like the one-of spells that can matter, then you could deploy the Saheeli. The problem is that Saheeli is then vulnerable, so you have to sort of make the evaluation of whether or not the Saheeli is critical to your game plan or not.
Yep. Totally agree. So here we go. Just decides to play Urza anyways. I like it. I think I would have Saheeli'd into Mana Crypt to start creating some more artifacts, which then make your constructs bigger. Then you can tap those for mana as well. But I think this play is totally defensible. And now, as far as Matthew Wright goes, we are going to have a turn where you can actually play one of your big threats here, and it'll just be the question, do you want to play Gut? Do you want to double spell, or kind of get Screaming Nemesis into play?
So looking at this, it's going to be the Screaming Nemesis. Corey, how do you feel about this as the option?
I don't mind it. Being able to attack with this, it's basically unblockable if there's any life gain that can happen. And the one thing that we have from John's side is there is the Sword of the Meek Thopter Foundry thing, so like that is something where you want to be able to gain life. But yeah, I think it's fine. I think I would have liked to be mana efficient, but.
Okay, well, Forensic Gadgeteer is going to come into play. Now the question is whether or not we start spinning the wheel here with the Urza or look for other plans.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, the cards in our hand right now, they're not great. I'm going to be honest with you. So I do like to see, I think this is going to be an Urza activation. Yep.
Spin it, see what you can find. Not sure what we had available. But I want to say we played a land first, right?
Yeah, we did. We did play the planes.
Yeah, because you can still play lands off Urza, if I'm remembering that correctly, so maybe we wanted to activate it first. Oh, sweet! Walking Ballista for 0. Love it.
Technically, you can cast that card.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does what you want it to do.
Storm count 1. That was a little unfortunate there.
I'm trying to see if there's... Yeah, if there are ways for us to buy it back, because if we had...
Oh, boy.
Okay, that's a big one.
No, not woo. Boo. It's time for Minsk and Boo. Let's get the hamsters going. I mean, I can't imagine you want to play anything besides Minsk and Boo here. And just get that going as, I mean, there are certain planeswalkers that snowball out of control, you know, Oko, Teferi. Minsk and Boo is on a whole nother level. It really snowballs out of control extremely quick. But once again, so does Gut. You know, whenever you attack, you get to sack another creature. And if you do, you create just a really quick clock with the creature it creates.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see that decision. Maybe it's because we didn't have a way to like get rid of the Urza immediately with the Minsk and Boo. And I could see maybe next turn we just like play the Minsk and Boo, you know. Oh no, but actually you don't get to draw the cards off of Minsk if you're not sacrificing a hamster, which is like, actually I looked through this, Corey. I think besides Changelings, this is the only hamster in all of Magic the Gathering.
Really? Not a single one?
Yeah, it's a fun fact.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't ask why I know this. I may or may not have been trying to build a hamster deck and just quickly close that chapter of my life. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what about Mirror Entity? Come on, that's a hamster.
Yeah, okay, technically the Changelings do work, but...
just kidding.
I wish there was more.
Yeah, definitely get the hamster stuff going. But I do like this play here. Gut being able to create basically the same amount of pressure that Minsk and Boo can have. And, you know, I'm not sure if there was any kind of counterspell. And actually, now that I remember this correctly, I'm pretty sure John Ramos had the mana drain, right?
He actually did. Yeah. That is true. Drafted the mana drain to combine with all the artifacts for big plays like the Time Spiral.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Being able to double spell in the face of a mana drain just is a much safer play. So I actually really like that play from Matthew Wright. And now you just got to think, like, what can John actually even draw at this point? Like, he's so far behind. There's not going to be any catch-up mechanism. I think this game is just over on the spot.
I actually think it is. And with the Minsk and Boo coming down next turn to just cement that tempo, there's not much that you can do. I guess one thing that I would consider as a top deck is one of the cards that we put on the bottom for our mulligans, which is the Time Spiral. That could technically get us into a position where we get Thopter Foundry and that combo online. But yep. Matthew's going to take the match here. Yeah, I'm going to take it down, and I'm kind of with you. That was the one thing that I think when you mulligan to 5 up against a deck that's going to have a nice streamlined aggressive plan, I think I would have loved to just keep the Mana Vault, keep the Mana Crypt, keep the island, keep the Time Spiral, and one other card, and just say, hey, if I draw the ice, probably, you keep the ice as then you can just tap down something, have another look at blue. He would have hit it on time, and that would have meant just resetting the hands. The game would have looked completely different there. Urza's great, but when that's your only thing and you're going 5 mana, flip the top card, you know, sure, it can be awesome, but sometimes it's just not exactly what you want. So that's Matthew Wright winning 2-0 up against John Ramos, and we are going to see Tangrams, Matthew Wright, and 2 other players are going to have a chance to play off, and winner will go to the finals of this Vintage Cube to play off for a spot in the grand finals. But before we go to round number 2 here on our next video, let's give away some more play points. If you want to win yourself some play points, make sure to leave a comment below. We're going to pick one of the comments with the most likes, and we're going to DM and
and award 500 play points to one very special winner here. So that's going to do it for the first round here of Vintage Cube, but you do not want to go anywhere. You want to make sure you click that next video as soon as possible because, well, if it's anything like the first round, we played what, like 7 turns in our first round, Anuraag? That was unreal.
Yeah, I am looking for more explosive gameplay here. Vintage Cube, I love the format.
Absolutely love it. And we're going to get ready for the next round. And we'll see you in a little bit here at the Magic Online Champion Showcase.